WNST college football season. I got my beautiful Terps flower here from Sporticulture, one of our great sponsors, as well as the Bills flower and the Ravens flower on my Facebook Live, as well as the YouTube WNSTV channel. If you are interested in shipping some flowers around, including this beautiful Terps flower here, 1-0 the Terps, you can go to Sporticulture. That's sporticulture.com. They send them anywhere and everywhere. Flowers of all kinds, and this is a local company with my pal Court. We'll be telling you more about that. This guy's a local guy, too. I haven't seen him much this summer, maybe at the All-Star game down in D.C. He is all things D.C. sports at WTOP. He's a bit of a college football and basketball nerd and junkie as well, with lots of previews out at WTOP. I follow him at Presto, you can too, out on Twitter. I mean, last time I talked to you, Dave, I think the Caps were still skating the Stanley Cup around and doing keggers and, and headstands into the cup and all that stuff. It's been a wild summer in Washington, D.C., I guess in lots of ways. Been a little while since we caught up. I don't know that it's going to be a great fall for the Redskins, which we always feel good about up here in Baltimore, Dave. But first off, welcome in, man. How's life?
Hey, it's absolutely wonderful. It's amazing that even though summer technically doesn't end until later this month, it's amazing how this summer just flew by. I think the Caps and their extended their Stanley Cup run really kind of made the summer shorter than it usually is.
I would say, yeah. It felt like my summer didn't get going to the end of June because of the back and forth to Tampa and Vegas and all that. And, sort of a wonderful summer in a lot of ways for Caps fans. But if you're a baseball fan in this area, you end this summer either where we are, which is, I don't even know. I mean, at least next year the Nationals will be competitive. They're going to have an off season. But I know that it's palpable frustration down there on the baseball side. And I would say, not too much on the Redskins side to think that they're going to be winning a championship and having a parade down there in January for that.
Well, and the thing is, too, is that the preseason in the NFL nowadays, I mean, it's never been a great barometer for what to expect during the regular season. But now when guys, your first string plays maybe one full half over the 4 preseason games, it makes August almost not worth watching at all. And unfortunately, the Nats have not been really worth watching the last couple of weeks. They've been playing with tag with the 500 mark since the 4th of July. And I think at the beginning of the summer, they were starting to teeter a little bit. And obviously the Orioles have not had an ideal season. And which is the bigger surprise, the Orioles crater or the fact that the Nats, a team that was seemingly built for a postseason run, is floundering at 500. It seems like every time with the Nats, it's one step forward, one step back, and this team is consistently uneven, which is a shame because And for some reason, they don't value the manager in the grand scheme of things. They were more than happy to go with Matt Williams a few years ago, who was an unproven commodity. They were more than happy. Even the successful managers that they brought in, Davey Johnson, Dusty Baker, older guys who might be on their last job, guys who can't command top dollar. Granted, the manager in baseball might not be as important as a football coach, but still, you need to have the right guy in that spot. And I thought that Dusty was the right guy in that spot for the regular season. Granted, his postseason record isn't the best, but he's a guy. Baseball season is a marathon followed by a sprint. And Davey Martinez is still finding his legs. He's still finding the type of manager he is. This is his first managerial job at any level. And even though he's had the chance to sit next to Joe Madden over the years with the Cubs, you still need a guy who knows what it's like to go through the rhythms of the season. And I think when you look at the Nats this year, their inability to sweep teams, especially when you look at they had the Marlins a couple of times where they were up 2-0 and either lost the last two games of a series or they weren't able to finish the job. So many times this year, they were not able to get sweeps when last year's team would get sweeps. And that's the difference of about 5 to 10 wins. And 10 wins is the difference right now between the Nats being at 500 or being a playoff contender.
Well, also the pitching and also the fact that the Braves and the Phillies have sort of caught up a little bit. And look, this Bryce Harper thing, it's felt like he's been leaving the Nationals for 3 years, sort of the same way as Machado, except Machado's gone now. What happens in the offseason for the Nationals? Because I know what's going to happen with the Orioles. They're going to run, they're going to hide, they're going to lie. The owners aren't going to come out in front of this thing. Brady Anderson's going to be pulling strings. I see this train crashing even further. With the Nationals, I don't know. I mean, I don't get the vibe that they're going to give Bryce Harper $300 million, but I don't know that anybody's going to give Bryce Harper $300 million.
No, I think and there's a lot of different things that could happen. I think there's the road that they could travel down where Harper does a 5-year deal or something along those lines, a shorter contract, because he's not having the best walk year, even though he is producing. He has a chance to drive in 100 runs for the first time in his career. He's over 30 home runs again, and he's actually hitting over 300 since the All-Star break. He's not having the trademark contract year that guys like to have. He's still young enough that he can sign a 3-year deal and then be eligible for his next contract at age 29. So he can still get that super huge payday after a couple of years if he so desires. Or he can do an 8-year contract or a 10-year deal with the option to opt out after 3 years, which might be the case as well. Who goes after him? I think the Yankees are definitely a player. I think the major market teams are potentially in the mix. The Dodgers, the Cubs. I think the Nats, because of their ability to shed payroll the last couple of weeks, getting rid of the Murphy contract, getting rid of the tail end of the Gio Gonzalez deal, they might be positioning themselves to perhaps be a player. I don't think they're going to break the bank for Bryce Harper, but I think they're definitely going to operate in good faith and at least give a decent offer that he's going to have to sit down and think about, because this is the only place that he's played Major League Baseball. And he's been here since he was a teenager, and there's something to be said about that.
Dave Preston covers all things Washington sports. I meant to have him on before the Redskin meaningless game last week. I'd rather have him on before the real games heading this week. And, of course, the Terps. He also covers the Terps at WTOP. You can follow him there on Twitter as well as at D-A-V, Presto. I guess Dave Preston was unavailable, but that's his real name. I got my Terps flower here from Sporticulture. I know in your marketplace, maybe even more so than Baltimore, where we still consider the University of Maryland and the University of Washington, D.C. in some quarters here. They don't do much or say much or play much up here. The young man who perished on the field there, Jordan McNair, was a Baltimorean. Obviously, it's thrown the program into chaos on the business side, on the educational side, on the legal front. But out on the field for one day last week, they went into the house that Jack Kent Cook built and beat Texas again. Dude, when they put Texas on the schedule a couple years ago, I'm like, you're already going to lose enough games to Ohio State and Michigan. Why do you want to lose two more games to Texas to start the season? It's unbelievable. They beat Texas twice to start the season. That just would have – you would have given me long odds, like 50, 100 to 1 on those kind of odds for the Terps to sweep Texas in that series.
And it's akin to Randy Edsall winning at Penn State and Michigan the same year. It's just one of those perfect storms from the standpoint of Texas in a rebuilding mode under Tom Herman. They didn't have their sea legs last year, and for whatever reason, they didn't look like a good team this year. They didn't look like Texas. They looked more like Rice as far as
they didn't look fast.
No.
Maryland looked faster, which I'm not used to seeing that, except when Maryland was playing like Wake Forest or somebody, Yeah,
and I think Maryland came to play last Saturday defensively is really what got me. They handcuffed the Longhorns throughout the course of the afternoon. Granted, there was a little bit of a blip in the second quarter, but for the most part, they held Sam Ehlinger and company in check, 3 for 15 on third down. And they also turned the Longhorns over 3 times in the fourth quarter. Antoine Brooks, what a game he had as their nickelback / linebacker, the game-sealing pick. You can't say enough about the quarterbacks, Kasim Hill, Terrell Pigram, both stayed healthy. I think if both had stayed healthy last year, or if one of them had stayed healthy last year, they wouldn't have gone 4-8, and that's what they have to work on from here on out. I mean, it's amazing what one win, Nestor, can do for you as a college football team. Going into last Saturday, you thought, okay, maybe this team, everything that's going on, they're going to win 3, 4, 5 games if they're lucky.
Well, I think we confused everything that was going on with what was going to happen once, you put horses into the horse race. These are football players, right? And they're student athletes. I want to make sure I get that correct because they are student athletes. But they're there to play football, and they live for this. And, they've rallied around this kid's death, even though this kid shouldn't be dead. And I think we can all agree with that. And 5.5 hours of football and an NFL stadium and a rainstorm with nobody in the stadium and blowing the big early lead. Boy, it was a season in an afternoon. It really was on Saturday.
That first quarter took about an hour to play. That was just like, oh my goodness, when are we going to get out of here? And in the fourth quarter, the weather delay, Nestor, I know that you're going to be shocked, but the press box at FedEx Field actually sprung a couple of leaks. They had to bring buckets because it was raining in the press box.
Back in 1997, 98, when we were still at Memorial Stadium, we played our first year down there, and your stadium was open, ours wasn't yet, and we used to call it IKEA Stadium, to sort of make fun of it. That's not fair to IKEA. For me. So, no. I have plenty of IKEA furniture here that's much better than anything I've seen down in that dump in Rowjohn. So, yeah, I'm with you on all of it for Maryland, but I don't know that it sells tickets. I don't know that it sells enthusiasm. I don't know that there's anything about what's happened there that doesn't make thinking human beings like you and I itch a little bit. I know they can't bring DJ Durkin back, right?
Right. It's going to be very difficult to, although a lot of boosters are in his corner, which it's just what I love about sports is that it's a distraction from the actual real stuff.
Except when it's not. Except when it's not.
And now that's not the case. I mean, a player died. And they got to figure out exactly, who is responsible, who is culpable. They've already, by giving the strength and conditioning coach, a handout on the way out, they've already, started to go a little bit in that direction. It's unfortunate that this kid's parents are. It's not a good situation, and eventually everybody's going to have to move on. And this season is going to be a very strange one because one does not know how the crowds will be at Maryland Stadium, because to begin with, crowds aren't great at Maryland.
Well, I know when it's going to be great when Michigan comes to town, right? I mean, yeah. you know what that's going to look like. I remember when the RVs would come down when they would play Penn State up here on 33rd Street 30 years ago. You could the RVs would start arriving on Wednesday night. Literally it became a tent city. That's going to happen for Maryland when these Big Ten schools come in forever, right? I mean, the Michigan fans, the Ohio State fans. I thought there would be more people at the Texas-Maryland game, but obviously the tragedy has affected everything around Maryland. I'm in no hurry to go down there and support them right now. I'm not. I'm really not.
I also think that it being Labor Day weekend, you can't. I know enough Maryland fans who late in September, they don't go to all the games because they still got their Ocean City cottage that they got to go to. And I think, Labor Day weekend's a tough get, but moving forward on this season, Nestor, the win over Texas, all of a sudden, it's almost like presidential politics where like an election, so to speak, where you've got your toss-up states, you've got your safe states, and then you've got your states that you have no chance of winning. Ohio State is never going to be a toss-up state, but you look at, all right, they beat Texas, maybe now they've got, in one's mind, they have a shot to beat Iowa.
Well, we
maybe
believed that
now,
last year until they lost the quarterbacks. As long as the quarterbacks are standing upright, Michigan doesn't look like Michigan to me either against Notre Dame, and they get them earlier, and they got to go out there and play them. They got to go out to Iowa and play in October. But by the end of the year, Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State at the end of this thing, they need to be a better team 10 weeks from now, and they need to have their quarterback standing upright to stay on the field. I don't think they're going to win, but I think they could lose 31-21 instead of 51-3.
Yeah, and I think, as comprised right now, this team has a chance to win 6 or 7 games. You talk about having quarterbacks stay healthy. Only twice since 2003, Maryland has had a quarterback start every game over the course of the season, whether it's been a guy's been ineffective, like Danny O'Brien was replaced by Randy Edsall during his first season back in 2011, or guys get hurt, which happens a lot. Only twice. 2014, I think C.J. Brown started every single game. They wound up going to a bowl. 2006, Tim Hollenbach started every game. They went to a bowl as well, and they had both of those were special seasons. You could term. I think in the last decade and a half. Since their early run under Fridge, you've got 2006 where they played over their heads, 2010 where Ralph won Coach of the Year and then was fired. Not ideal. And then 2014.
Well, the first thing I thought of that night when I pulled into Idaho Falls and I saw the story drop, whatever it was, 4 weeks ago, I was at Yellowstone Park, first week of August, and I saw that story. The first thing I thought of is, I wonder what Ralph Friedgen's thinking. Literally, that's the first thing I thought, because that's the kind of stuff that didn't happen when Ralph Friedgen was there.
Right, and it's one of those things that the Churchill quote was they had a choice between dishonor and war. They chose dishonor; they'll get their war. At the time, the brass had the choice of dishonor or success. Well, it's tough to have success in college football, especially at a school like Maryland, where it's not in the culture as much as it is in the teams that they face in the Big Ten East. 4 of the 7 schools are 3 of the schools are blue bloods, and the 4th, Michigan State, is a very good program that's actually won quite a bit more than some of the others. And they chose dishonor by what they did with Fridge. And they're going to get their ceiling is 7 or 8 wins.
Well, the Fridge and bring Franklin into that too. Make sure you bring him in, right? So,
yeah, it's a shame. I mean, it's one of those you hate to play the what if game because there are so many other variables and factors. But there's always like the guy in me who always wonders what would have happened had George Lazenby made one more Bond movie after Her Majesty's Secret Service. There's that Maryland.
That would have been Live and Let Die. That probably or Thunderball. No, Live and Let Die. Yeah, that would have been good. Yeah.
Yeah. There's always that guy in me that wonders what would have happened had they kept Fridge through the end of Danny O'Brien's career, because finally, Danny was the first quarterback that Friedgen brought to campus where things really worked and really clicked from the get-go. And O'Brien was just I think a redshirt freshman when he started, and he was ACC Rookie of the Year. Led them to within a pick 6 of winning the ACC Atlantic. They had Florida State on the ropes. And it's a shame that the university didn't say at the time, "Hey, listen, Bridge, we know that you're getting up there in years. We know that that the last couple of years have not been ideal, but you finally have a quarterback. You're here until Danny O'Brien's done, and then after that, you're going to gracefully wrap up your career, and you'll stay on as a coach in one of those mid-level
advisory capacity role, consultant." Yes.
It's a shame that didn't happen, because I think part of in my mind's eye, I think that if Fridge had stayed, Danny would have continued to mature as a quarterback, and I'm not saying they would have won the ACC, but it would have been a lot more interesting than what we had the first 2 years under Edsall.
Dave Preston covers all things Maryland as well as the DMV, all Washington area sports at WTOP. His college football previews up at WTOP right now. You can also follow him on Twitter at Dav Presto. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at King Discount Liquors, lottery, beer, booze, and the best prices in Baltimore. Get on over to Rosedale and give the King a ring. You see this Paul King TV ads. Haven't seen them lately because I haven't watched enough Oriole baseball lately, but I'm in some of them when they allow me. And Johnny Bev and the All-Stars as well. Get on over to Rosedale and say hello to Paul King and our friends at King Discount Liquors. Also, Fremont Mortgage. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. You need the right lender. You need Carl Delmont and our friends at Fremont Mortgage. Buying, selling, thinking about it. And, of course, also sponsoring our swabbings and all of our live shows that we're going to be doing here in the coming weeks during football season. Fremont Mortgage. Go to Fremont.com to get the education that you need. Last but never least, our friends at Cole Roofing and Pfister Energy, pouring the Royal Farms Kona Blend into my coffee cup today. It's real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms, and of course, Chicken Palooza is over with, but make sure you're using the app and the rewards card when you pump your gas. You'll get your Western fries and your fried chicken free because the points add up. Cole Roofing, of course, sponsors our Thursday Community and Charity Series. If you have an event, 5K, 10K, something you're going to raise money on, something's for a good cause, let me know. Throw me an email, nasty@WNST.net. We'll get that going on Thursday mornings. Dave, I want to get on to the NFL side of things here because, Bowling Green, Temple, a couple of these games coming up for Maryland. I'll circle back Michigan week with you on that. But in the meantime, the Redskins and the Ravens begin with different kinds of hope and optimism. We talk a lot about the Ravens up here and their game this week and, where the season's going to go and how they have to beat the Buffalo Bills to start the season. Where is the thought on the Redskins at this point? It feels to me like another one of those sort of ho-hum, we might go 8-8 kind of years, and another quarterback out and another quarterback, an older quarterback in. Strange way that place is run down there, my friend.
Nestor, but before I get into talking about the Redskins, I want to congratulate the Ravens, that 5-0 preseason. I don't know if you guys get a banner, a certificate, a plaque for going 5-0 in the preseason.
I think it's 13 in a row, by the way, yes.
A semi-parade or something like that. Who knows? What's interesting is that
I asked if we get the Governor's Cup, if we win the game with the Redskins, and nobody's answered that yet. So I guess there is no more Governor's Cup.
Sadly, I think it's more of what PG County's Commissioner's Cup or something like that. What's interesting is that until this year, the Redskins were dominant in the preseason under Jay Gruden, 11-5 coming into this year. Their worst preseason at 1-3 since Jim Zorn was calling plays, or at least pretending that he was calling plays. I think this year with the new quarterback, there's optimism that they've got a new guy, and it's amazing how Alex Smith. Yes, he had a good year last year for the Chiefs, and he has been okay at times throughout the course of his career, but he's never had seasons like Kirk Cousins has had the last three falls, and it's amazing how much he's been given in just his short time with the team as far as credibility. The team has him as the face of the franchise. They're all in behind him, and the team never bought into Kirk Cousins, which is, I don't know if that's the classic number one overall draft pick versus the fourth rounder who never, got the necessary respect. But I'm floored on how quickly it's just all in, and it's an Alex we trust, while it was never in Kirk we trust. It was so bad that Bruce Allen was calling him Kurt by mistake, which I still don't understand.
Well, Kirk Cousins, I guess he was everything RG3 wasn't from a results standpoint, right? I mean, Those guys came in together, and one moved to the front of class, and the other one's hanging on here in Baltimore. I'm sure you have some thoughts on RG3 as a backup quarterback as well, having been through it down there, because he seems like a likable bloke. He seems like a nice enough guy. It certainly has been through some hard times and has been humbled by all of that. But the Kirk Cousins thing, for RG3, watching him blossom and become a $100 million quarterback has to have been something as well, right?
Right, and it's amazing that they both came in at the same time, and it was odd that they drafted Cousins so soon after drafting RG3, and unfortunately, I don't think at the time Griffin didn't have the necessary psyche to handle the Redskins draft a guy so high. Like if they had picked somebody in the 7th round, a flyer, a quarterback, he would have been probably okay with it. But when they drafted Cousins and Shanahan said, "Oh yeah, this guy, he's got a 2nd or a 3rd round grade," why draft 2 guys so high? Evidently, they had an idea that RG3 might be a tiny bit brittle. He was, and that made for an interesting 2 or 3 years when before they sent RG3 out of town and they let Cousins handle things. I think the key this year for the Skins will be how healthy their defense will be. Their defensive line is much rebuilt and revamped. And if they're able to get things done defensively like they have it the last few years, this could be a potential playoff season. Granted, there's a logjam of about, it feels like 20 teams that are from 10-6 to 6-10, depending on breaks, because unlike any other sports, football is a snapshot league as opposed to a full portrait of 162 games where teams regress back to the mean. Teams are more of an accurate portrait. It's like having 162 pixels as opposed to 16. I think that there are naturally always winnable games. I think the Skins have a chance to make noise this year, but I also think that Alex Smith, does he have the necessary targets on offense? Do they have a running game? Not really. Now that Geis is out for the year as he injured his knee in the preseason. I think there are still the same issues that have plagued Jay Gruden teams over the last 4 years will plague them this year. And I think 500 is the perfect starting point to think of where they're going to finish.
They got Adrian Peterson now, so that's good.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Dave Preston joins us here. Dav Presto out on Twitter and WTOP down in D.C. Caps coming back out on the ice in a couple of weeks, right? Like, been a really short summer because of the Caps, and here comes Todd Reardon, and they're going to drop the puck in a week and a half, right?
I think Alex Ovechkin has finally stopped drinking.
Well, you know what? The Stanley Cup, the Hall of Fame issued a thing earlier this week saying that the Capitals have become famous for keg standing on the cup, and it's sort of bending the cup. So the Caps have bent the cup.
Oh, well, so I think keg standing might be out from here on out.
This may be the last generation, kind of like when Claude Lemieux took it into the men's room at Howard Stern. Remember that?
Yeah. And it's just it is the best trophy in sports. No offense to the Larry O'Brien Trophy or the Vince Lombardi Trophy, but the Stanley Cup is the gold or silver standard, as it were. And what's nice about the Caps is they return just about everybody except for Jay Beagle and Philip Grubauer. They return everyone of note from last year. Granted, they have a new coach in Todd Reardon, but I think much like the Nationals don't really value managers, the Caps don't really value head coaches. And, props to Barry Trotz for getting it done in his final year and walking out the door with his head held high. This was a team, though, that was an overtime goal away from being down 3-0 in a series against Columbus, a series that they had no business being down 2-0 in. So it just shows you how crazy hockey can be, especially in the Stanley Cup playoffs. You'd think that some of the guys who had career years last year are going to regress to the mean. They need solid production up the middle, but it looks like another great regular season, at least, in Caps land.
Well, they brought everybody back with the coach, right? So, that speaks volumes to how they felt.
Beagle and those guys can easily be, you're going to miss Beagle, but for the amount of money that Vancouver's paying him, you couldn't justify giving him that much money.
Besides, Trotz was the one who loved him anyway, right? That's one of the things that got him sideways with management there. So, God bless the Caps. They're going to start it out again without Barry Trotz in a week and a half. Dave Preston is out there covering all things college football, the Terps, the Redskins, all things D.C. We're giving you October off. You don't have to cover baseball this October for a week, okay?
I know. It's amazing how we lost May and June because of the Caps run, but I got October back. So I guess 6 to 1, half dozen to the other.
Go enjoy fall foliage, okay?
Oh, it's beautiful. Hey, you got to check out the overlooks. One of the things that we do on WTOP.com, you talked about our college football work. we actually have this thing every Friday, Presto's Picks, where I actually choose which wine and cheese Kippy and Buffy, my University of Virginia friends, will be tailgating with at Scott Stadium.
Are you pro-Virginia or anti-Virginia? I'm trying to figure that part of it out.
It's such a passive-aggressive shading thing. It's not even fun. So.
Yeah, the only time I was ever at Scott Stadium, my wife and I went there to see U2 when they played in the Circle, maybe about 10 years ago.
Okay.
So, so it's the only time I've ever stood there, so I don't know. I mean, I definitely understand that Charlottesville would have a Chardonnay issue, right?
Yeah. Oh, and then popped collars and all. Oh, gosh. And boat shoes, yeah. It's not Nantucket Red, it's cranberry shorts that they wear. So.
Well, I remember all of that from the Who's and, Marilyn and Ralph Sampson and, Lee Raker and Jeff Lamp and all those, Terry Holland. I go back with all that, but I've given up all that ACC angst, Dave. It's amazing how quickly all the, the Duke stuff is worn off.
Yeah. I mean, one still doesn't like Duke, but I think the saddest byproduct of moving from the ACC to the Big Ten, Nestor, has been you lose. I mean, yes, okay, it's great to play Rutgers and Michigan State, but you lose a lot of it's akin to getting a divorce.
Well, we sent UMBC down there to take care of the Who's, right? So.
Oh, I know. How about you? My friends who are just like, yeah, man. I was like, oh gosh, to be the first number one to lose, because a number one seed could lose next year, but Virginia's always going to be the first school that lost as a one seed.
Well, you're an old guy like me. You go back to Chaminade, so it's not the first time Virginia's choked. There's no doubt about that. So,
oh no.
Hey man, take care of yourself. We'll get to college basketball soon enough. In the meantime, the Terps are 1-0, right? And I have beautiful flowers in my studio because Sporticulture sent me the Terps flower, and I'm thinking if they had lost 51-3, I don't know if they would have sent the Terps flower this week.
No.
Dave, take care.
Nestor the gardener. I didn't know.
Oh, yeah, man, I got to water these. These are real plants. These are beautiful up here, so it smells nice. My cat is wildly attracted to the red one. So Rasig is going to get the Buffalo Bills plant before it's all over with, Dave. So
beautiful.
Week after week, I got to find a Bengals fan for next week. See you soon, man.
Hey, take care.
Dave Preston, Dav Presto, to those of you out on Twitter and at WTOP, one of our defending champs and our good buddies from Caps games and Terps games. I don't go to Nationals games, so I can't say he's a buddy of mine from Nationals games. I don't go to Redskins games either, although I did go to one last Thursday night. I know half the people in the Redskins organization. It's interesting. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships directly to your email inbox each and every morning at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. $10 a month gets you in the best shape of your life. Also brought to you by the Maryland Jockey Club and Laurel, where the entries are on the front of WNST.net as well as in our morning newspaper. Maryland Million is October the 20th, and the DeFrancis Dash is next week. Get on out to the track. The new Laurel is beautiful. Make sure you get down to the sports bar down there. It's phenomenal. Last but never least, any breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That is all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5. It is the SSV on WNST. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.